G'day, I'm Steve Menzies and welcome back for part 3 of the series of Zorba and Arko. Let's get straight into it and pick up the chat where we left off.
How hard was it to eventually walk away from the game? You felt as though the game could come together quicker. You stepped down to really facilitate a settlement, didn't you?
Well, I did. Look, once an agreement had been reached and the fight was over, I thought, well, you know, it's probably better for new people to be involved, and you know, I thought it's probably better. John Quayle had just resigned, and of course I was missing him because, although I say it myself, John and I were a pretty good combination. You know, because we both cared about the game, and we both hopefully made a lot of right decisions for the game. But you know, I thought at the time, you know, it was better for all concerned for me to take a backward step and get out from. And you know, I must say, you know, probably for the first 6 months of my retirement, I felt very semi-depressed, but of course I'm over all that now, and you know, I think I'm very happy to see how the game's going at the moment. I think the game's in pretty safe hands with the people that are running it at the moment, to tell you the truth.
You think Volantis is on the right track?
Look, I've only had the pleasure of speaking to him on one occasion. I was introduced to him, I think Mr. Batty introduced me to him, and we spoke for about 15 minutes, and I can always recall after speaking to him, this is before his appointment, I thought, well, he seems to be a pretty capable bloke and on the ball, and I must say, I think, you know, the game's going along pretty well at the moment.
Okay. We've continued to win competitions with great coaching and some wonderful players, and I would imagine that 2008, when Manly beat Melbourne 40-0, would that be one of the greatest days to see a club legend like Steve Menzies score a try in his farewell game, and to bring back from 1947 the centre in that side was his grandfather, Mackie Campbell.
Yeah, it was one of the great moments of my life to see that, and particularly when he got that try right towards the finish of the game like that. It really was tremendous, and you know, for us to win the game by so much, because Melbourne are a great side. They're a great side, and but we just played out of our tree that day. We everything we did turned to gold. We just played.
We've had some memorable occasions, even though we're not one of the oldest clubs in the league. But when you consider we won the last grand final ever at the Sydney Cricket Ground, 1987, when you were in charge of the game, and you couldn't help but stand up in your private box up there and cheer Manly on, with Bob Fulton as coach.
Yes. And
Cliff Lyons weaving his magic, and Michael O'Connor and another Englishman in Kevin Ward coming out in heatwave conditions and being the best player on the field. Must have made you proud that day again.
Oh, it did, yeah.
And the last grand final before we moved next door to the Sydney Football Stadium.
Yeah, well, it did, you know, and, you know, they really played well that day, Manly. They deserved to win, and they did. They won well.
You used to tell me everything, and we've kept it pretty much between ourselves, a lot of things, but you are a man of your word, but you've got feelings for people. Now, the Brisbane Broncos came in 1988, the year after Manly won the comp in 87. You had signed for Manly before you left the club earlier, Wally Lewis and Gene Miles, and they would have been very much part of those sides in the early 80s.
Yeah.
But there was a sense of feeling that Brisbane would have a side and you wouldn't hold them to their contracts once it became known they were coming in. True?
It's the truth. Look, I dearly would have liked to have had those two players with Manly because they were great players and there's no risk. Manly would have won easily with them in the side. But you know, in the interest of the game, I mean, you know, it was better for them to remain in Queensland. It really was. And I did discuss it with them, and I discussed it with other people in the league, and it was, you know, I mean, if I was still with Manly, I'd have got them down irrespective. But because of the fact that I was in the position I was as one of the leading administrators in the game, it wouldn't have been the right thing. And I did. I was very instrumental in them staying in Queensland, notwithstanding the fact that I loved to have been with Manly. I mean, had they been there, the competition would have been a living certainty with them there.
You were very instrumental in State of Origin and getting it going, along with your great mate Ron McAuliffe.
Yeah.
I recall many a time we had a cold one after a state game, and the state games were going nowhere. I recall 1,500 people at Leichhardt Oval for a New South Wales Queensland side. Didn't seem right with Arthur Beetson playing for New South Wales and a lot of Queenslanders in the sky blue. They hated us for us. And then the concept of State of Origin came, and wow, did it ever take off?
Oh, it did, you know, and people have said to me in the past, oh, gee, that was good that you got the State of Origin going. And I said, no, that's not right. The State of Origin got going because of Kevin Humphreys and
Ron McAuliffe.
Ron McAuliffe from Queensland. I said my job at the time was to convince the Sydney clubs that they should release their players, because we had a lot of Queensland players playing within our clubs, to release them to play in that competition. That was my role in the thing. But the people that came up with the concept of it were Ron McAuliffe and Kevin Humphreys. And
they don't get enough credit for that, do they?
No, but I tell you what, whenever people ask me, I make sure that I say that because it's the truth.
Okay. I'm going to ask you some questions that I think Manly's ardent supporters would want answers to.
Yeah.
First of all, what's your memory of when you first came in? Were Manly the Seagulls or the Sea Eagles?
Well, I think actually everyone used to call them the Seagulls when they first came in, but to me it didn't it didn't sound a very strong name. I thought Eagles sounded a lot stronger than Seagulls, so you know, we sort of started calling ourselves the Sea Eagles, and of course that caught on, and everyone else called us the Sea Eagles, and that's who they are to this day.
Is it because the Seagulls are not a very let's say, courageous bird?
Oh, geez. No, I think so. They don't sound very tough to me.
So Sea Eagles came in, but it was originally Seagulls.
Well, people were calling us the Seagulls. I never called us the Seagulls because I think they're a very docile bird, if you want to know the truth. But anyway, they are the Sea Eagles, and they're recognised as such at the present time.
Okay. Tina Turner, what's your recollection of that?
Look, not only was she a lovely lady, she did a fantastic job for the game.
Simply the best.
Simply the best.
Who could ever forget it? What a brilliant concept. The sky was the limit, and rugby league showed the way again to the rest of the sports in Australia under Quayle and Arthurson.
Yeah, well,
that must be one of your greatest achievements.
But you know, I must say that she was just outstanding. I mean, she sort of justified the fact that we decided to get her to come here. She was absolutely fantastic, not only in the way she conducted herself, but she was a lovely lady as well. I had a great deal of time for her as a person.
Okay, I'm going to go through some people in your life that I know have had a marked effect on you, and then we'll come through to the present day and have a look at some of your favourite players in the modern era. If I mention John Quayle to you, and you've spoken about him during our talk today, a very good footballer, but a great administrator, as he's proven in the Olympics, and he's been involved in lots of Olympic games and the organisation of that. Yeah. Just working together, you were peaches and cream.
Yeah, we were a good combination because apart from everything else, we're very close friends and we do get on very well together. And I not only is he a good administrator, he's also a good bloke. And the other fellow that did a lot for the game and who I get is Colin Love. He was chairman after I resigned for some years, and he's done a lot. He's done a lot for the game too, and I sometimes think he hasn't been recognised too much for some of the many good things that he did do.
Well, at a very select luncheon a few years ago, where I was honoured to be invited, and John Quayle and Colin Love were a couple of your guests there that day, and we had a wonderful day reminiscing about our great game.
Yeah, well, the three of us do meet regularly, and we're meeting again whilst I'm down in Sydney this time. We always get together, at least once or twice a year. Whenever
that's wonderful.
Yeah,
someone that a lot of people won't recognise the name, but you will straight away, because she was your right-hand person for so many years at Manly, at the New South Wales and Australian Rugby League, Pam Parker.
What a lovely lady, and what a very, very competent lady. She is somebody that, I say quite openly that she was very, very helpful, and anything that I had the good fortune to achieve, she was very much behind it and supportive. She was not only is she an outstanding secretary, but she's a lovely lady.
You took her from Manly to headquarters.
Yeah, I did. She was working for Manly actually, but she came across to finish her career with me.
Okay, we spoke briefly about Peter Moore, but the Bullfrog was a character, and together you virtually helped clubs that didn't have a tight hold in at Phillip Street get a stronger hold.
Yeah, I think we probably did play a pretty big part in that. There was a group of us that sort of were always pretty good mates together there, and there was Kevin Humphreys and Charlie Gibson and
Terry Parker,
Peter Moore, and Bob Abbott and myself, and we people used to say we ran the league, and whatever we said went, and I suppose most times it did, because all of us did know a little bit about the game, I think, and we really cared about the game, and I suppose they used to call us the cartel in there, because everything we used to put up normally got through.
My old broadcasting mate, prior to that, he was a great referee, but he was seen to be very biased towards Manly. Greg Hollywood Hartley.
Oh, look, yeah. Now, look, I think Hartley was one of the best referees we've ever had. I really do. And people from time to time used to say, oh, look, he favours Manly. But they're forgetting one thing. When we beat Cronulla that last time, or the first time in the grand final, he gave them a penalty kick when it was, I think the score was 11-all, right on full time, and it wasn't.
Steve Rogers missed it.
Steve Rogers missed it. It wasn't a kick that he'd normally miss. So if he was so much on there, how come he gave him that penalty right on, which the game would have been over if he kicked it and would have lost the competition. And, of course, the following week we went through and played them and we won quite convincingly. We won by 15 or 20 points or something.
Malcolm Reilly.
Great player and a great bloke.
What made you go after him?
Well, I was in England at the time, and I this young fellow, he was only about 19 or 20 at the time. I was watching, and even the Pommies were a bit frightened of him. I thought, geez, he's just the bloke I'm looking for. Anyway, I got.
You wanted some mongrel, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
I remember I got 12 cautions in one game, and you congratulated me. I nearly died.
Yeah, well, that's why I liked you, mate. Yeah. Actually, I said to. I got Malcolm to come, and of course the club wouldn't release him. I said, "Don't worry about that. Just get on the plane and come. Let me argue that out."
You used Jim Comans.
Yeah, and anyway,
and Colin Love. Yeah,
and anyway, we got him to come here.
What a player!
Oh, he's a great player and a terrific person.
Oh, he's a wonderful person. He's one of my best mates. I love him.
Bloke,
good
bloke.
Yeah. What a player, though.
Oh, good player. Yeah.
What a player.
Fantastic player.
Okay. This next person, Jean Hay, your sister, 10 years younger, and what an achiever she has been.
Yeah, well, she has. I'm very proud of my sister. I mean, not only has she had the Queen's recognition in getting an AM, which, I've been fortunate enough to have.
Brother and sister, both with AMs.
Yeah, well.
That's a wonderful achievement.
Achievement.
Your mum, Mary, would be proud.
Well, it's a terrific achievement for my mother, and anything that Jean and I have achieved is very, very much attributed to my mother, who was just the most wonderful person, and anything that we've achieved, we can be very thankful to her for.
Okay, Sports Australia Hall of Fame in 2010 for your services to the game. What another fabulous honour, well after you've retired. So your legacy has continued like it has here at Manly.
Yeah, well, it was a very, very great honour, and of course I'm very, very proud and very, very grateful to have received that sort of an accolade. But it's actually, when I was in Melbourne, I went and had a look through. It's a wonderful thing they have up there, of all their great players and people of the past and present. And so for me to have my name there and record and photo and all that sort of stuff there, whether I deserve it or not, I must say I'm very, very grateful and very proud to have it,
Okay, let's fast forward from those times we spoke about where Manly dominated grand finals and then we went into the Super League era. Let's look at one of the ill-fated associations that ever happened, was the amalgamation of North Sydney and Manly to form the Northern Eagles. I know you were greatly involved in times when the club needed some advice and you were there to give it to the club. And after talking to some very smart legal minds, after North Sydney couldn't continue with the joint venture, despite the NRL saying the licence is not Manly's, you virtually said to the NRL, we are coming to take our licence back. Yeah. Now, you received some great legal advice from the son of one of your great mates, the late Tom Bellew,
Yeah. Oh, great.
Jeff Bellew.
Yeah, Tom and Jeff Bellew, great people, great, absolute. But not only very, very good people, but very, very knowledgeable people and very smart people. Yes, but no, I can recall that, and I'd retired from Manly at the time, but I came back to do something, and I went into the.
You went into the league.
I went into the league
and demanded to David Gallop that Manly get their licence back.
They were saying, no, we certainly could. But anyway, I said, look, we've got an agreement, and it's in writing that if the agreement between North Sydney and Manly was over or fell through, the licence would revert back to Manly. Anyway, I know when I left the meeting. I was told later from someone in the meeting, they said, he's right, you know. And I was right.
Well, Jeff Bellew was adamant after looking at the setup. Yeah. And, of course, he was a North Sydney representative.
Yeah, that's right.
On the ball, I remember it clearly. Yeah. I was working at the Northern Eagles at the time. Yeah. And North's, he was the first chairman of the Northern Eagles. And North sacked him. And the reason they gave was that he was too fair. Yeah. So they sacked him as their chairman.
Yeah. Well, I said to them, at the time, I said, look, if you try to take that right away from us, we'll fight you with everything we've got. If we have to mortgage the Leagues Club, whatever we're going to do, we'll fight you with everything we've got.
That was one of your greatest victories, I think, because it was going nowhere fast.
Oh, yeah, and they were definitely going to take it off us. And anyway, I was told after I'd left the meeting that one of their people on the committee said he was right in what he said, you know. Which I was right.
Yeah, and it quickly came back to Manly.
Oh, yeah.
And the club started rebuilding again.
And we rebuilt again. Yeah.
And Des Hassel was appointed coach. And to have one of our own again in charge proved out to be a masterstroke. And we had some great players in that period that built up from the Stewart boys coming through our junior reps from Wollongong, and Ian Thompson. I'll give him credit for that. He was the C at the time, and one of our former players. He was instrumental in bringing them up from Wollongong. St George Illawarra would not sign both the brothers. They wanted Brett, but not Glenn, and they were coming as a package. We had no doubt. And I remember Glenn's and Brett's dad saying, Barry Stewart saying, you won't regret signing Glenn. He will be a wonderful player for you as well. And he became one of your favourites.
Oh, he was. He was a great player, Glenn. He was a really great player. And actually, the reason we were able to get them is because of your friendship with the Stewarts. And you initially put me onto them, actually.
I did. And I remember sitting with you in the Bob Fulton stand behind the goalposts. And I said, I want you to see this kid play. And you sat with me. We sat in the front row, and I think he scored 3 tries, and you just said, wow, what a player, what a fullback. Now, we've had some wonderful fullbacks. I mean, we had Bob Batty, the late Bob Batty. What a wonderful man. Oh, yeah, and I played with Bob when I first came to Manly. He was the first player in the club to notch 200 games. He was our top point scorer at the time. But he had 2 looks at Graham Eadie playing and said to you, I'm retiring. This kid's too good. The Wombat from Woy Woy. Yeah, that was a great signing.
Oh, what a great player.
What a great player.
And look, the person that was first instrumental in doing that was Jim Peebles.
Jimmy Streaky Peebles.
I'd heard about this bloke, and I asked, I couldn't go this particular weekend. I asked Jim Peebles, would he mind going to Woy Woy to have a look at him for me? And he came back and he said to me, yeah, he said he's a real good player. So I got him down, and when I first saw him, I thought, Jesus, this bloke, he doesn't look as though he can run. No. He was that sort of build. I thought could he run and could he play? I mean,
if you remember in those days, Rex Mossop used to come down to training, the late Rex Mossop, another great Manly player,
so he was.
And very loyal to Manly, became a great broadcaster and used to sell Holden cars for a living before he got into television. And he used to bring his football down and we'd play touch. And the first day Graham Eadie was there, he was the last person picked. And it was Fred Jones as captain. He was captain of one team, and Rex Mossop was captain of the other. And last man standing was Graham Eadie. And as you say, he didn't look, when he first came, like a footballer. He had all this hair and a big head. And he said, well, Wombat Head, you're with me. And that's how the nickname came about, Wombat. And he's Wombat to this day. And what a wonderful player.
Fantastic player.
How do you rate the fullbacks? And, I mean,
God, he was a good player.
Graham Eadie, Brett Stewart, far and away the best.
Yeah, they're the two best.
They're the two best. Could you split them? Completely different.
Look, it's very hard to differentiate between them as to who was the best player, because they were both just absolutely outstanding. Gee, they were good players.
They were good players. That
Players.
side that Des built with players like Jamie Lyon, Steve Matai, Steve Menzies, Matt Ballon, Matt Orford, Steve Bell. It was just a side that every game there was excitement out of them, wasn't there? And they built up to what they became in. They got a hiding in 07 when Brett Stewart was taken out of the game with what I thought was an illegal tackle after he went up for a ball. But that game was gone. But they more than made up for it the next year, 40-0.
Yep.
And as you said, one of the great moments in our history.
Oh, it was. It really was one of the great victories in our time there.
And that side backed up in 2011 when they won the Premiership 10 years ago now.
Yep.
In our 65th year.
Yep.
Another achievement for us when they were too good for the New Zealand Warriors. And again, the Stewart brothers, Jamie Lyon and Anthony Watmo, who I'm sure you rate as one of our best local juniors.
He was.
What a player. Great leg speed.
Real good player. Yeah. And gee, you just mentioned Jamie Lyons. Wasn't he a good player? And what a wonderful bloke too.
Yes.
Know? Gee, good player.
Well,
really
that was a tribute to his association with Crusher Cleal.
It was actually.
Got him to go to Parramatta, and then when he left Parramatta, Crusher, he got him to come to Manly.
Yes.
And there once again was one of our former great players involved with the club, as he is today still.
Yes, exactly. Exactly right, yeah.
How do you rate Crusher Cleal in all of those years?
Oh, Crusher was a real good player. He was a real good player, and probably one of the best players we've had. Crusher. He was almost unstoppable sometimes with that ball. I mean, even when he played in the centres, he was outstanding. But when he went into the second row, he was just unbelievably good.
Well, that's where we're going to have to leave it for part 3 of the Zorba and Arko series. Make sure you stay tuned and look out for the 4th and final episode of this amazing Ken Arthurson story.